by for Wyoming Hookin Huntin Outdoors with your host, Drew Kirby.
Hey, this is Luke Holmes.
I am Morgan Wallen.
I'm Riley Green.
I'm Travis Denning.
Hey, I'm Aaron Lewis.
Hey, it's Luke Bryan.
I'm Tim McGraw.
What's up? This is Ian Munsick.
Wyoming Hookin Huntin Outdoors.
We're into June, Janet, and things are warming up. It's getting hot, and I know that you have a summer cold, it sounds like, and those suck.
It does. Thanks for rubbing it in, Drew. It's always a good thing when it finally gets nice outside and all you can do is stay inside.
Yeah, and, being outside here is something that we have a kind of a narrow window, because winter could go all the way through May, and then it can happen in September. So those summer months are the prime months to get out and really enjoy the things that maybe you don't get to do during the winter, and especially with kids not being in school.
That's right. I think you're pretty optimistic, though, Drew, just saying that winter often goes through May. I can remember not too many years ago, June 23rd, we had a pretty fantastic snowstorm that left us wondering what in the world was going on. But yeah, I mean, it's very short-lived in Wyoming, and we do try to get out and enjoy it as much as we can.
And one thing that we always say on this program is you can't let the weather dictate, getting out and do something, because if you were going to wait for the weather to be perfect, then, it may not ever happen. So
exactly. Or you can listen to the adage, Drew, that says wait 5 minutes and it'll be different.
And it'll change, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So one of the things that we have around Wyoming is fisheries. We have fisheries where we talk to Matt Hahn time and time again about the opportunities that we have. But there are those that think, I have to have a boat and I have to go to Alcova or I have to go to Glendo to take advantage of that. And that's not really the case, because right here in town there are plenty of places.
That's right. And, we talk a lot about that, Drew, about, what's going on at Pathfinder, what's going on at Alcova, because those are destination fisheries that a lot of people from Casper do visit. But just like you said, you don't have to have a boat. You don't have to have a car. You don't have to have anything to enjoy what Wyoming has to offer. And we're lucky enough here in Casper to have the North Platte River. We're lucky enough to have Yesness Pond, Bryan Stock Trail, or Lake McKenzie, both right here in town. And then a little bit further out by the Dan Spees Fish Hatchery, we have Jessica's Pond.
Yeah, and those are all great opportunities. And I know that people love to get out and take their kids and just, there was a great amount of people that took advantage of the free fishing day and the kids fishing day. And I know with the Wyoming Walleye Stampede, they had a fishing day that had almost 20 kids out with, the anglers and on Glendo. So opportunity after opportunity is here. And you talked about a couple of those places. And obviously, if you're over 14, you have to have a fishing license.
That's right.
And that's one of those things that people think, okay, well, I don't need them because I'm not going on the big lakes or anything, but you still have to have a fishing license.
You do. And, up to 18, it's pretty affordable. It's only a $3 license fee. So it's, not too bad. But again, it's 14 and older. So don't worry about it. If, you're younger than that, you can fish without an adult. So residents and non-residents, of course, there's always different requirements there. And we happen to have non-resident family in town, and the kids are going to make sure to hit Yesness Pond for an experience that they don't necessarily always get to have. And so we will definitely make sure that there is a licensed adult and the non-resident with those non-resident kids.
Yeah, and it's always good to go to wgfd.wyo.gov. The fishing section, the 2024 regulations are there, and if you have any questions, you can go right down and boom, boom. It's like taking an open book test.
But just don't quiz me on it, please. It is. It's one of those things that sometimes, in case you don't have it in front of you, it can be very tricky. And so just make sure you're following those rules and regulations. But more importantly, get out and enjoy yourself and let your kids have a fantastic summer. And those community fisheries, we stock it, we load them. I mean, they are full of all sorts of fun and fantastic fish. Not too long ago, we hauled in, I can't even remember the number, 360, 260, something like that, 8 to 12 pound catfish that we put in Yesness Pond. So, I mean, that is a huge and hefty fish, and they're all just hanging out there ready for someone to catch it.
Yeah, and that's one of the great parts about it is we always talk about stocking the big lakes and rivers, but these ponds and lakes get stocked as well. So opportunity knocks all throughout Casper when it comes to fishing.
It does, and it's just a great opportunity to get your kids out. And I'll say that over and over and over again, but it absolutely is. And my boss was here not too long ago, a couple weeks ago, and their kids were out of school, and she happened to bring her kid here and sat him on the banks of the North Platte River outside of the office, and he fished from, bless his little heart, from 9 o'clock in the morning until 3 o'clock that afternoon when our meeting got out. And so, just those sorts of things are just, fantastic opportunities. He had a great day. He was successful. And, it just makes for the start of a fantastic summer.
Absolutely. Well, Janet, we appreciate it. And again, go to wgfd.wyo.gov, click on the fishing boating section, and the regulations are right there.
It's Wyoming Hookin and Huntin Outdoors.
Wyoming Hookin and Huntin Outdoors, literally hooking today, Brian.
And outdoors.
And outdoors. It works out really well. And we're out at Glendo fishing around today, just really nothing much but putting lines in water. And that'll just clear your head. If you're having a rough week, get out on the water, and boy, you'll definitely be in a better place when you leave.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous day. It's, I don't know, probably mid-70s, and the big W is not blowing, and we're catching fish, and it's been a great day.
Yep, you're running a slip bobber with a leech. I've been running a wacky worm with a worm on it, and it's just been, both have been hitting pretty good.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's Glendo's definitely fishing well, lots of small fish, good numbers of fish, and of course we're out here hunting for a big one, but no luck yet on that one.
Yeah, we're out with Bob Maxwell too today from On the Hook Towing, and Bob's even caught a couple out here. He's almost showing us up a couple of times.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to bring him again though, because someone in his life says he can't fish every day, and we don't need that kind of negativity around here.
Well, if you do fish every day, which we all would love to be able to do that, you're going to run out of equipment and everything. And a little bit later on in the show, we've got Northland fishing tackle. You guys carry a long line of Northland tackle.
We do, and it's amazing. They've got tackle that's really designed around walleye, but obviously a lot of it can be used for crappie and trout and all that kind of stuff. And so we cater really more to the product mix of the walleye fishermen here at our store, and they've got a great line of stuff. I mean, I think everybody that's ever walleye fished has bought a Northland jig once in their life. Yeah,
matter of fact, we're going to talk to them a little bit, but they're the leader in jigs in the entire country. I think well over 75 different models of jigs. So it's kind of cool, and you can come in and we've been kind of fishing a little bit different where I've got more of a chartreuse Christmas tree like, and you're running a whole different kind of plastic, but they're both kind of hitting.
Yeah, obviously, with Glendo, the diversity of how you can fish is great. Right now we're fishing some steep rock cliffs, and those fish, I think, kind of just work around the edges and kind of looking for worms and bugs that come off there. But, if you're the guy that just needs to constantly be casting, a paddle tail or a swim bait of some sort, and then, we have been doing a little bit of twister tails, tipped with a worm or a leech, and that seems to help on a little bit slower bite.
Yeah, so really, you go into Rocky Mountain Discount Sports, you walk down the aisles, and you might get a little bit overwhelmed because there's so many options. But one thing that we were talking about over the weekend was the slip bobber setup that a lot of people have been running lately, and I know you like to run that, and you have been running that for years.
Yeah, and I think every time I go out, I kind of perfect something a little bit differently, whether it's the size of the hook or the type of knot or the type of bobber that I'm running. I think I've got it down pretty good right now, but I mean it's amazing on how you can tweak just a basic presentation to just be a little bit better.
And they even think about things like that when you're running that slip bobber, because they now have the different. The depth markers that you can put on there, that
like the knots. There's different types of. I mean, obviously there's like just a regular yarn string knot that will help to set your depth, but and not everybody, does it the same way. We were talking to Bob earlier about, how do you set your depth? And there's a lot of people that just kind of guess, they think, well, my boat says I'm in 15 foot and, could do the arm length and 5, 10, 15, set a bobber or set the knot. And, I kind of use a depth checker like we use for setting tip ups and get that depth set, right where I think it needs to be. And then if I'm casting up a little bit shallower, I can adjust it from there. But, yeah, it's kind of fun to just fish with different people and see different presentations and, different parts of the lake and, fish. We're fishing a section of the lake that I've driven past 100 times this year, but I haven't stopped to fish it. And we pulled, 3 or 4 really good quality fish off of here. So.
Yeah, I caught a sauger, and you got one about the same size as that. But
we got a crappie off this wall, so it's been kind of fun.
So when people think about bobbers, you think about bobber fish, you think about the red and white bobbers that you used as a kid that Grandpa used to put on your pole and things, but the whole presentation and setup is a way different than that. And I think some people maybe think one thing and they try to do it the exact same way. So really there's a little more that goes into it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously YouTube's your favorite best friend when you're looking at, presentations and, things that you don't really know much about. But I use the Thill, Thill bobbers. And the beauty with using this type of bobber versus like the traditional red and white bobber where you just clip on is that you can fish depths of, 1 foot all the way to 50 foot. And so when you're seeing fish moving around in different depths, we've caught fish everywhere from 7 foot to 20 foot today. So if we wanted to target a bobber in 20 foot and have that bait right on the bottom, it's pretty easy to do with this style of bobber. If we were trying to use a red bobber, it just wouldn't be possible.
Right. Well, they call it a slip bobber for a reason, because the way that it goes through the bobber, it actually can slip up and down and follow your depth.
Correct. Yep. No, it's one of my favorite presentations. Of course, this time of year, you can catch them casting crankbaits and paddle tails and twister tails and dragging worm harnesses around or just a slow death hook. So a lot of different ways. And, obviously, a lot of times you kind of see what's happening by watching the people around you. The guys in front of us look like they're just flat out, pitching jigs, but we're doing pretty well on the bobbers, so it's kind of fun.
It was fun when we talked to Noah last week on the show, and Noah is one that has learned a lot about the slip bobber from you, so much so that when he and his dad go out now, if they see you, they're like, hey, what are you running depth-wise? And so they can adjust. So
right.
It is really, really nice to sponge off of people. And I'll tell you that if you go to Rocky Mountain Discount Sports and go up and down the fishing aisle and don't look like you know what you're doing, somebody's going to come over and help you and be able to help you out in that situation.
Yeah, and regardless of, what lake or body of water, I mean, not everybody there is a fisherman, but, there's a handful of us that, can give you good directions if you're going, up to Keyhole or to Boysen, kind of give you an idea what the bite's looking like and what presentations are working.
Yeah, and if Brian's off that day, just tell him to call him. That's
Yeah, I love phone calls on my days off.
Don't we all? Don't we all? But, yeah, get in and see him at Rocky Mountain Discount Sports. And in just a little bit, Brian and Mitch and I are going to talk about how everything wrapped up at the second Wyoming Walleye Stampede. The Governor's Cup happened just last weekend, and we'll give you the full details there and talk to the winners. Joe and Keith, our old buddy Joe is the big winner, and we'll chat with him in minutes.
It's Wyoming Hookin and Huntin Outdoors.
Well, it's in the books, the very first Wyoming Walleye Stampede Governor's Cup, and Mitch and Brian, boy, it went off, and I think everything went pretty smooth for the first time of a Governor's Cup. I mean, it's not the first time you've ever done a tournament, but this was high stakes.
It was high stakes. We had 141 boats, raised the entry fee a little bit for this event, which will probably continue in the future. It had some fantastic payouts. First place walked away with $15,000. Second place was $10,000. Third place was $7,500. I think fourth place was still $5,000. So these guys, I mean, they worked hard. I mean, it was really hot the last 2 days, especially in the afternoons, and then today the guys were fighting some thunderstorms and big raindrops and some wind. So the guys that pulled it off, they definitely earned it.
And the first and second place were under a pound apiece. I mean, it was that close to where, it was anybody's game, Mitch, until really much the end.
Yeah, no, I think you had the leaders yesterday had a big bag, and then the winners today, the guys, they were consistent. They had a bite that held out a little bit better for them. The second place team actually leading it yesterday. They just had a big weight that didn't show up today.
It's fun to see all of these guys, and we're going to talk to Joe and Keith, who won in just a little bit, but this tournament series has really become more of a family thing because, even the guys that maybe have only been here a couple of times, they want to come back. And there were guys that were fishing here that, had heard great things about it and wanted to come up. They came from Colorado and they come from Nebraska and South Dakota. So it really is a great family fun event that, moms and dads and kids and dads all get in on this tournament. It's really kind of cool. And, this being the inaugural Governor's Cup, to see this cup is going to be here in Glendo. You guys had a vision, and I think the vision came true.
Yeah, this tournament circuit, a lot of times, especially from other places around the country, they'll look at this as saying it's a grassroots, kind of division, right? But, we've got 141 boats. It's like the largest team format circuit in the country. And when we started this circuit 16 years ago, our goal was to make sure that people of all skill levels could jump in here, feel that they can compete, maybe win a family division or a poor boys division or a dinosaur division and had a chance to get their entry fees back at a minimum. But it's grown to be a circuit that, surrounding states are looking at us and they're saying, the weights are fantastic, the fisheries are fantastic, the facilities that we're running these events at are very accommodating. And it's a family type of scenario where it's a lot of camaraderie. There's a lot of first-time teams that have come up here. And, we sat, on wade boats talking to teams. And, yeah, it's our first time here. I've never been here. And, being able to kind of explain to them, how these reservoir systems work and what typically happens. Today, this week is not a typical week for Glendo. They're dropping water at an extremely high rate. Farmers downstream of us are needing water early. And so normally we're pitching bobbers in the trees and kind of fishing like the old Devil's Lake scenarios. And anymore, it's anyone's game. And the gentleman that won it today, they did win a tournament with different partners.
Yeah, they won one of our championships, Pathfinder. I think second or third one. Yeah.
So, like I said, it's a family deal at this point, that long. So if it was a second, that's, 15 years ago that they've been fishing this?
Right.
So, and there are teams like that have been here every year. They put it on their calendar as soon as you mark the date. So it really is kind of fun to see the same old guys.
Well, it's nice to be able to give back to the community as well. So these anglers, a lot of them donated their time on Friday for a kids event that we took 15 kids out from 10 to 2. They had the opportunity to fish with a pro, quote unquote, And then on Friday night, we did a Calcutta where we gave a 10% of the Calcutta earnings back to the Glendo Fire and EMS. So, I mean, it's not just a take and, just come in and use a facility. And these guys really do care about each other. They care about the kids. They care about the community. And it's great to see everybody kind of pull together and support the winners and the community in general.
And I think, honestly, most importantly, they care about this fishery. All the lakes we go to, the reservoirs we go to, these guys, they respect the waters. They respect the fisheries that we compete on. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes they get maybe a bad rap or we get a bad rap with that. But these guys, they set a pretty high standard for themselves, and I think that is also why we have the camaraderie we do. I think these guys hold each other to these standards as well.
And you mentioned the fishery. I mean, it's pretty high class here. You have multiple ramps that the anglers can use, and the system that you guys have together has been great. And now the marina under new ownership. When we talked to Mark and Alicia the last time we were here, and I mean, they worked their butts off here, and and it's cool to see that they work so hard for all these people just to make them feel like they're home.
Yeah, and like you touched on that, the fishery itself. Our Game and Fish has done a really good job of maintaining this fishery, monitoring the bait fish that are in here, and really supplementing fish when the sampling isn't good. But Glendo Reservoir, compared to a national average, has one of the highest catch rates per gill net surveys in the country. So you can go to great fisheries like Devil's Lake and catch multiple species of fish, but the catch rate that our Game and Fish is surveying, and just angler success on this reservoir, if you haven't been to Glendo Reservoir, this is one that you got to put on your bucket list.
Next up is Boise at the end of June, so there's really almost a 4-week break until the end, and there's still available slots for that. I know that we talked last week about that, Brian, but Mitch, I know that everybody kind of convoys over to Boise, and it's another great fishery, which is another opportunity to fish somewhere maybe you haven't.
Yeah, I think honestly, when you come into Shoshone and you look over to the north and you see that reservoir and realize how big it is, and the closer you get to the Wind River Canyon, it's pretty unbelievable. It's a really neat fishery. I think it's 13 miles long, if I remember, 14 miles long when it's full, and a totally different type of bite. As Brian said, this fishery is amazing. Glendo's amazing. We're pretty blessed with the reservoirs we have, and Boisen's another one that is kind of an unknown out of the state, but it's got potential to have some really big fish in it.
It's really some of the best, most beautiful country in Wyoming. You're looking at the Wind Rivers, and we're going to be there at the end of June, and we're still going to see snow on top of those mountains. Right. And then as you go through that Wind River Canyon, and you're paralleling the river into Thermopolis, and where they've got the hot springs. I mean, it's a great opportunity for these families, now that kids are out of school, to come out and enjoy like more tourism and recreation that our state has to offer. And while Dad's out fishing, the kids can be in the hot springs, hanging out with Mom at the hotel, and when Dad gets off, they go to dinner, and they spend some quality time together as a family, on these trips.
And it really is good. And the best way to get in touch with you guys is go follow you on Facebook. You guys are really active there. It's the Wyoming Walleye Stampede is where you can find it there. Correct. And you guys will give updates and throughout the next couple of weeks of, how many slots you have available. And people can either contact you in Rocky Mountain or go through the website or Facebook, right?
That's correct. Yeah. The website, we love people going to that WyomingWalleyeStampede.com. We do have a drone video that we put up there years ago that really kind of tells the secret of how we manage the actual tournament in terms of measuring fish, releasing the fish. A lot of people see 140 boats on the water, and they think that, boy, that poor fishery, they're killing all those fish. This is a catch and release length to weight conversion. Most of the time we're going to be measuring in at this reservoir like 3,000 fish, and we're going to have maybe 5 or 6 observed mortality. That's way less than any recreational angler that was on this water today. And so for our guys to get out there and appreciate, the fishery itself, be able to catch some good quality fish, and go home knowing that, they're going to be able to come back and do it again, it's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, and on that point, one of the greatest things ever is when there's a fish that is ailing that may not make it. The anglers that caught it are almost teary-eyed because we don't want that to go away, and they'll do everything in their power to let that puppy swim again.
Well, the one thing about a walleye that doesn't make it into the reservoir definitely makes it into a frying pan.
That's right.
So there's never anyone that's too upset about that. And a few fish here and there is not going to hurt this fishery. But to be conservation minded, when these guys are pre-fishing, they're looking for those larger fish, and they're being very conservation minded in what they're harvesting.
Well, next up is Boise. If you are interested in getting in on this, there's still availabilities. Go over and check them out on the Wyoming Walleye Stampede Facebook page, and you can message through there or email through there. And all right, we're moving on to the next part of the state for the next couple of weeks, so it should be fun, guys.
Another new rodeo.
Thanks, Drew.
You got it, guys. And now I'm sitting with the champions of the first Governor's Cup, Joe Rangel and Keith McClarney, guys from Colorado, and familiar with this lake, but it was pretty tough for you to start out, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, it was really rough. It was actually really we didn't know where we were going, actually, tell you the truth, because we were in the middle of the pack, and there were so many boats involved that it's like a parking lot. You got to try to find what you could find, and my partner here is he's dialed in. He's probably the best that I've ever fished with. So he said, let's go do this, and down the road we went, and it worked.
Keith, when you guys hit the ramp on Saturday morning, did you have an idea of where you're going to go and and what your philosophy was going to be?
We had spots we wanted to try first thing in the morning, and we actually fished there for probably a good hour and a half, made 2 passes through there, didn't catch a single fish. And switched up and made a long run and ended up getting 5 fish in about an hour and 1 good one, which gave us confidence to go back and try some stuff that I've always wanted to try.
So you have really good familiarity with this lake, and it's not the same every time, is it?
Oh, no, it's not. Well, they drop the water down so much. So that just takes everybody out of play. You know, you think you have it under control, and then they drop the water on you, and then you're like, uh-oh, we got issues, we got problems. But you just hammer through it, and in our case, we just kept casting, just keep casting.
This is a very special fishery. It's kind of a shame to see it this low.
You guys have won the inaugural, so now you are the first name that will always be on the Governor's Cup that will be here at Glendo. So when people come in, they're like, oh, look at that. It's going to be Joe and Keith. How does that feel?
Awesome.
It's
Awesome.
You can't explain it. It's huge. It's huge, especially when him and I are probably kind of like the same, and we work hard and we play harder, and when your name's on that cup, it's huge.
You know, when I met you for the first time last year, Joe, you're one of the nicest guys. You always ask, if you need anything, come see me. And you and I have become pretty good friends. And Keith, we've spent a lot of time over the last couple of years too. So it's really a family bonding in this. There were 141 boats. That means there are a lot of anglers out here, and there were very few that you don't have history with. And that's kind of one of the cool parts about the Wyoming Walleye Stampede, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Of course, I have the gift of gab anyway, so it's a little easier for me, but it's wonderful to have all these friends and everybody sharing the love, just sharing the love. That's all it's all about.
So, Keith, are you going to fish the next week's tournament? Because there's another tournament here, and then...
Not on that one.
You're not on that one, but Joe, are you going to fish that one? No, you're just going to be here. You're on vacation.
Oh yeah,
now, right?
I'll be here, and I'm gonna pre-fish with my buddies, and hopefully they can tap out on that one.
Yeah, very good. Well, guys, congratulations again. 49.13 pounds taken, the very first, the inaugural Governor's Cup at Glendo.
Thank you so much. I feel honored. Thank
That's
you very
awesome.
much.
Let's go have a party. What do you think?
Oh yeah, it's about to start.
It's going to be a good night.
Guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it.
It's Wyoming Hookin and Huntin Outdoors.
Ah, yes. Fishing season is upon us. It's Drew and Wyoming Hookin and Huntin Outdoors. Such a great time the last couple of weekends at Glendo, and this week got a chance to go out there. And one of the great products that we've used every time I've gone out is Northland Tackles jigs and baits. You can get them at Rocky Mountain Discount Sports. So I thought, hey, let's get Sam Larson, the product manager, on the show. And Sam, I appreciate you chatting with me.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to be here.
We just finished the second round of the Wyoming Walleye Stampede this past weekend, and Northland Fishing Tackle is one of the sponsors of that. So I thought this is a fitting time to have you guys on.
Awesome, yeah.
Of course, you guys are in the upper Midwest in Minnesota, right?
Yep, we're based out of Bemidji, Minnesota. That's where John Peterson, the founder, grew up and started fishing walleyes, and it's kind of the Northland for Minnesota. So that's kind of how he came up with the name. And we're surrounded by some of the best lakes in Minnesota. We got Red Lake just to the north, Leech Lake, Cass Lake Chain, Winnebagosh. So it's a great area to be a walleye fisherman, that's for sure.
Yeah, Sam, walleye fishing here in Wyoming has exploded over the last few years. The Stampede has been going for 16 years now, and walleye fishing is the same in Minnesota as it is here in Wyoming, and the cool part is you get to try it out and then give us the options.
Yeah, and that's, like I said, that's been kind of a cool part of the business. Like I said, of course, John started it in northern Minnesota, but since then we've kind of reached kind of a national standing, and especially anywhere in the walleye belt, you can find our products, and it's cool to see how, with our marketing growing and we were able to expand into these areas. And like you said, walleyes are walleyes, and they like to eat the same thing. So a lot of the techniques stretch across the country, but out west is an area that we really are seeing growing, as far as Washington and whatnot. It seems like more and more people are getting after walleye, and it kind of becoming a tradition for them, where, Minnesota, it's been a tradition for years and years and years. So it's cool to see the expansion of walleye fishing. I think walleye fishing, kind of with the techniques that are being done nowadays, it's kind of getting a rebirth, and we're seeing a lot of younger anglers getting back into it. So it's really cool.
You guys have been in business since 1975. That's when the company came together. Over the years, obviously, there's been huge changes in the way, fishing, even with like electronics and knowing what to use and what jig heads to use and what bait to go with. And boy, you guys have got it figured out pretty good. As a matter of fact, you guys have lines, and not just walleye, but other things like bass and trout and perch. I mean, just a whole line of different baits for anything and everything.
It's been fun. And like you said, Northland has been a long-standing company. I've been here, I think, about 8 years now. But probably within the last 5 years, we've really made a dedication to quality products. So trying to kind of be the best of the best. And like you said, with sonars and everything is just changing the sport. I know one thing we're really getting into is our tungsten jigs. We launched that. I think we're in our third summer of having those tungsten jigs now. And when we did it, it was kind of new to the market. There was some what we call public molds out there, where it's just, basic round ball heads that other companies were making, but we kind of made the investment to get into some of those custom molds that are a little more expensive to make. The jigs are a little bit more expensive, and we didn't really know where the market would go. But after we developed them and started testing them, we're like, wow, we use a lot of tungsten ice. We do a lot of ice fishing too. And tungsten and ice fishing is huge, but in the open water, is just as big. And as soon as we started selling it, the public figured that out too. And I would say that's kind of the biggest revolution we've had in the last few years. And we want to keep the heat on the fire on that one, and keep on pounding out some tungsten products, because it's just amazing how much better they work. You have more sensitivity with them. It's a smaller profile. They fall a little faster. It fishes a little bit more clean.
After so many years, how did you guys come upon this? I mean, were you like, well, you know what? Let's just go out and see if this works.
Yeah. So the one thing is we're the largest producer of jigs in the nation, because, again, we specialize in walleye. A lot of our jigs are, 5-pack, 6-packs. We used to do 25 bags. So we're kind of the nation's number one walleye jig maker. So we said, if anyone's going to pony up here and make a pack of jigs that cost $9 for 2 jigs, it's going to be us. And let's try it and see how the public responds to it, see how it fishes. And that's how we got into it. And like I said, we loved it, but we were a little skeptical whether it would be accepted by the public, because it is a little bit higher price point, especially compared to a lead jig. But like I said, it's been like wildfire. And, I think I do a lot of the product development here. And there's one thing we look at is like a demonstratable point to the product. Okay. So when you have tungsten, and you tell people, hey, it's more sensitive, you can feel more, and it falls faster, and it's a smaller profile, it's a great enough change that you can actually, as an angler, feel that. So when you cast it out on braid with a fluorocarbon leader and start dragging it across the sand and the rocks, you can feel right when it goes from that sand transition to the rocks into the mud. I think you can feel bites better with it. And then, too, if you have them side by side, it's easy to to show off that profile of, hey, you can see how this one's 30% smaller than its lead counterpart. So, like I said, I think those things really helped bridge the gap and help consumers get up to that little higher price point, because they know they're getting a better product out of it.
And it'll sure make you think about where you're casting too, because if you get into something and you lose that jig, you're going to be heartbroken.
Exactly. But the one flip side of that is, because that was a big concern, you get into really snaggy stuff and guys aren't going to want to fish them. But one thing we are finding with that is, because they're more sensitive, you can kind of feel when you're starting to get down in the bottom and kind of keep it up a little bit higher off the bottom. So it's kind of a flip thing. If it's really snaggy, a lot of guys go back to the lead. I know we have a lot of northern pike around here that are notorious jig biters, but rocks and northern pike and other toothy fish are what pays my bills. So I'm okay with it. But yeah, it is something to consider, the area you're fishing and the jig heads. But like I said, it's so good now that we've had a ton of northerns this spring, and I just keep getting them because it's hard for me to go back to lead now. It just fishes so much differently. It doesn't feel right, the same, because that tungsten is so much better.
So really, Northland fishing tackle, game changers. Obviously, been around for a long time. Are you guys still at 73 styles of jigs, or in the 70s around that?
Oh, I don't know how many styles of jigs, but the SKU count we have is somewhere around 5,000. So that's, kind of an individual color and size, but we got a warehouse full of products here. And one thing we're kind of trying to do is, we used to kind of try to service everything, but we're finding these niche products like tungsten, and like you mentioned, bass too. So now we have bass crankbaits, and bass jigs made with Gamakatsu hooks. We're kind of finding those really hot products that work good for everyone, and trying to get those to be better available, and really focusing on the stuff that works and the stuff that's the best quality versus, trying to have different price points and a bunch of different colors for everything. We're really trying to dial down into what works, so we can service our customers better that way.
I like that. I like the fact that, I've been researching you guys and watching videos and just seeing how important, in your line, the product development and making sure people are getting what they pay for. And I also love that you guys sell the kit. So if I'm a new walleye fisherman, I can go on your website, I can go to Rocky Mountain Discount Sports, and I can look at a kit, and I can grab that kit and fill up my tackle box without having to really research a whole lot of different things. You guys have done it for us.
For sure. Like it's, like you said, we have 5,000 SKUs, and it can be a little overwhelming for people. So we try to make some kit options that kind of help the shopping experience, and kind of little starter packs. And even sometimes, if we're coming out with a new product or whatnot, a lot of times I have the samples, but if I'm low on something, I even get kits because it just kind of refills you with everything you need. Joey over there and our website's constantly managing them and making sure it has the right stuff in it and making sure they stay in stock. So yeah, that's definitely been a growing part of our business.
That's cool. I really enjoyed it, and really get lost at looking at all the different colors. And personally, Sam, if you're out and about on a June afternoon and the temperatures in the upper 70s, low 80s, what type of bait are you going to throw?
There's two things. If you would have asked me that a few years ago, I probably would have said pulling a spinner rig around. But with the advent of forward-facing sonar, and how I like to fish, I love chasing them around with a jig and a plastic. Another thing we've came out with is those eye candy plastics, and they're made of that TPE material. When people ask what's TPE, you just tell them it's the stretchy stuff. It's kind of that indestructible, super flexy material, and it's by far the closest thing to live bait I've ever seen. And oftentimes I think it makes a little nicer, more realistic presence than live bait. So once you get into June and the fish get a little bit more aggressive and they're not, sniffing and really inspecting baits, if you have something that matches that profile, they get after it and bite it. So 1/4 ounce tungsten head and an eye candy paddle shad is, for me, that's definitely my favorite way to catch them.
When you're using that new material, how many more casts can you get out of that? Because I know most plastics use them and they kind of get a little weak after a while, but it sounds like this is, a game changer.
Yeah, that's kind of an added benefit. So I think the action is the really important thing there. If they only lasted one fish, I would still get them because of the action, but they're indestructible too. So we've had people catch hundreds of fish on them. What I actually do is I will often get a little bit of super glue and super glue it to the jig head. And then really it kind of turns into a lure for me. And generally I'm losing the whole jig head to a snag or a toothy critter, or breaking the line before that plastic is getting bit off. Sometimes fish will bite off the tails and whatnot, but it's going to last probably 10 to 20 times longer than a traditional PVC bait would. It's pretty incredible stuff.
So a new tungsten shank jig and an eye candy paddle shad. That's the key to the summer.
That's the key to the summer. And the great thing about that too is you will catch everything in the system. We use it around here, and we fish a little Wednesday night bass league. And there's one lake that I say I go for the slam. And with an eye candy and a tungsten, I can catch a walleye. There's just largemouth in that system. Pike, of course, will come up and get it. Crappies, bluegills, everything kind of eats it just because it looks alive. So it's a great thing to just go chuck around and see what kind of bites you'll get too.
That's awesome. Well, Sam, I can't wait to get out and try this, and I encourage you, go over and check out northlandtackle.com to find out more. Also, the full line of walleye baits and jigs are on display now at Rocky Mountain Discount Sports. And Sam, let's keep in touch when you guys get some new stuff. I want to hear about it because I think it's a big game changer here in Wyoming.
No, that's for sure. Give us a ring anytime. I'm always happy to talk fishing.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. And that's how we are on this show, hunting, fishing, and loving every day. That's going to do it for another episode of Wyoming Hookin and Huntin Outdoors.
Wyoming Hookin and Huntin Outdoors with Drew Kirby. If you have a question, want to make a comment, or have an idea for a show topic, message us on the My Country mobile app. Wyoming Hookin and Huntin Outdoors.